Welcome back to the Wu campaign in Oriental Empires. Last time we had a big chaotic war with the Chu to our west. We invaded them in the north and were relatively successful, while they invaded us in the south and almost caught me off guard, but we did push them away in the end. We captured one of their settlements and then they just surrendered to us, so we absolutely won the war. With that done, we needed someone else to attack because we're nowhere near getting the amount of population in our empire to win, so now the Dong Yi to our north are in our crosshairs. For this war, we're going to have available to us some of what I presume are the top tier of soldiers, the guard troops. These special golden boys will hopefully stack out our army with extra power. We can only have a few because they take so long to replenish. So each force, or some of the armies, will have the odd unit, just to make sure we've got that elite core to absolutely overwhelm the Dong Yi, who as far as we know only have tribal spears and similar units like that. About 45 minutes later, here we are, waiting, ready to make the invasion. Took me a while to get the armies together on our northwestern and northeastern borders, and we had to wait for our Fraternal Harmony Pact to expire. The Dong Yi don't want to be at war with me by the looks of things, and that's a good sign. They're willing to pay for some more friendship, but in this case we're going to have to say no, because they've got too many people. It's ruining our score. We're going to move our armies right up to the border, ready to go. This is our northeastern army group. We've got 5 or 6 stacks that are going to go up and attack all of the Dong Yi territory on our side of the Yellow River. They've got loads of towns around their capital which are split off from the rest of their empire, so they'll be going that way. And we're going to have 10 or so stacks fighting around the river and on the other side of the river, where we know they have other cities. We can even see their faction leader is standing on the banks of the river, just across from our armies, so this is a particularly auspicious time to start hostilities, may be able to catch him in a fight. Let's get on and make the offer then. Apparently it's a balanced offer. Both sides think this is reasonable, so we'll go right ahead. It seems we have no choice. Also, our vassals are automatically joining the war on our side, which is great because the Shang in particular are right in amongst the Dong Yi. The first turn of advance wasn't particularly eventful. For some reason my men didn't actually cross the river. I did give them orders to do it, but I think the enemy faction leader being there somehow blocked them. That faction leader wandered off somewhere. And elsewhere our armies just moved into enemy territory, destroyed a few farms, and that was about that. As you can see, the camera is completely out of control by this point in the campaign. The more tiles you reveal, the lower the frame rate gets, and that causes the problem I mentioned previously where it can't detect you releasing the camera movement keys and the camera just jumps all over the place. I actually tried reducing the graphics to see if it would make any difference, and not really. I think it's a RAM problem actually, because I notice when I'm running this game my RAM is completely full for whatever reason. Anyway, it's time for turn 2 of our invasion. We're going to try and get our guys to actually cross the Yellow River this time. Got some more guys sneaking around off to the west. In the east we just need to advance through these open plains with all these stacks. But these stacks aren't very well suited for taking cities. They've only got a few archers and no siege weapons, so I'm really just looking to destroy all of the farmland with these armies. As I advanced, an enemy army appeared right in front of me there. I think you can set your army into ambush mode, which makes them invisible to other players, and apparently you can do that even in open ground. So suddenly we are ambushed by this stack of tribal light spears. The problem for them is we've got 5 or 6 stacks of heavy troops, and as our men make contact, the enemy lose tons of men and immediately rout, so this is going to be quite a short battle by the looks of things. We'll just sweep these guys off the field, and we'll be able to continue on as if it never happened. That's a good bit of first contact with the enemy, I think. There's also fighting near Xuzhou. This is the place that didn't actually have walls when I first planned to attack Dong Yi, but they cheekily built them here. They've got an army attacking us outside the town. Can't really tell what's going on, it's just a chaotic mess, but our troops are better, so we can rest assured it's going fine. And we've got other armies also attacking the town at the same time, getting that engagement started. There's one more battle going on nearby. I say battle, it's more of a phenomena. Apparently our allies in the Shang are attacking this Dong Yi army, but when I zoom in, what actually is happening is the Dong Yi are just dying of outrage. Their men are dropping all over these fields. So the Shang apparently have some ghost troops, or maybe the Dong Yi are just being struck down by the heavens for having too many people and ruining my perfect score. Either way, looks like we've just picked up another victory to start off this campaign. That's got to be a good thing, thanks to the Shang for helping us out there. There was just one more battle in this opening turn. I think it's the army we already killed, the guys that tried to spring an ambush on us. We ended up catching up to them while moving around and fighting them again. So let's just see how quickly we can annihilate them. The enemy charge into battle, our guys sort of charge in, and bang, that's pretty much it. We can rout these Dongyi troops with no effort whatsoever. Our effectiveness will be reduced by lack of stamina as the war goes on, but this is a pretty sterling start. I think we're going to have that enemy population going down very soon. In the next turn we were still slaughtering them, but the main thing that was going on was over at Wei, the big city across the Yellow River that our northwestern attack group is going for. We've got a pitched battle going on. Two lines form up outside the town. Our archers look like they might be willing to attack and eventually go for it, and then a battle between the infantry lines ensues. This time we don't have quite as heavy infantry as we do in that other group. This is our generic trained halberdiers, I think, or it could even be army halberdiers, the inferior version. But the enemy are even worse, so after a short grind we do still rout the enemy. It's just not the instant wins we were looking for elsewhere. With them defeated, we'll push on towards the city. At Xuzhou, the grind is continuing, but with so many breaches opened up now, we just have to defeat one or two of the units inside to take the settlement, and by the end of this very turn, after a long grind, we do get that settlement. Now we have to decide what we're actually going to do with this place, because we're on the edge of our authority limit, so actually occupying Dongyi's territory isn't necessarily a good idea. That said, I remembered that when we fought the Chu, after taking one settlement they just surrendered, so I thought maybe we can do the same thing here. First we're going to occupy it then, and now that it's officially ours, we're allowed to use it in diplomacy as part of deals. So I can go to the Dongyi and basically offer, if you surrender right now, I'll give you this thing back, because I don't really care about occupying their territory, I just need it all vassalized so it counts towards my population score. Unfortunately, to cut the long story short, they didn't accept any deals, they are not interested in being my vassal, so we will have to continue on, and we'll have to not occupy any more settlements going forwards because we don't have the authority. There's a small battle going on over here in the east, where our ally, the Shang, have sent a full stack to support us, so that's very nice of them. I'm sure their troops are inferior to ours. That battle's looking a little bit glitchy. We're going to jump back to Wei, where the real fighting's going on, and in this case, because I've ordered my army coming from the east to attack the city, they're sort of distracted, and when the survivors of the last battle come to attack their flank, they're quite successful. Many of my units are rushing off to go and attack the wall and look into the open breaches that our archers have already created. So we're going to have isolated units on our left that are going to get surrounded. We've got another army supporting nearby, but it's not quite in range to take part in the battle, unfortunately, not for this turn anyway. The other army coming in from the west of the city does send a few troops to attack the enemy army outside the walls, so that will help us out a little bit, but still we did start to see some damage done to our initial attacking force. Even our powerful armoured units were getting routed by the enemy just due to sheer attrition, and the enemy for some reason not routing. I'm guessing in some way them having local numerical advantage improves their morale over what we saw in the previous battles. We didn't lose though, the time limit ran out before anything serious happened, and the enemy did take serious losses killing my men, so their own effectiveness will have been blunted. Now, while I was just wondering what to do with this army, I ended up making an important discovery. I accidentally scrolled the map over here, and I was like, oh, the Dongyi have all of this territory. I think I couldn't see it before. The Shang must have given me some map information or something in some deal. And now we know the extent of the Dongyi, and we know in particular that they're gigantic. I guess we should have known that before, since they were the second biggest nation by population, but somehow I expected them to be a bit closer. They're so far away that to actually campaign through their empire would take probably more than the amount of turns are left in the game. So that just means we want them to surrender as soon as possible. If I can control the camera here, which I can't, I can go and attack this new settlement they've just set up in the top right of the map. There's nothing there, so this one unit of peasant spears that I had used to scout out this area previously will go and make an attack. I was planning to attack this city right here, however they built walls there just now before my army arrived, so we didn't quite get the free capture. We'll just go around taking out their field armies and destroying their farms to put the pressure on them, just like we did with the Han. Over at Xuzhou, we saw a siege defense, remarkable in that this very rarely happens. This might even be the first siege defense of the campaign. They sent like 40 guys to try and retake the town, and that failed. Over at Wei, now the army that wasn't taking part in the battle last time has joined, and we have 3 stacks against the enemy's half a stack outside and perhaps the same amount inside. We're going to easily win at this point, no enemy reinforcements in sight, and the camera is completely out of control. As you can see, it's only getting worse, especially with all the fighting lagging things even more. We got a surprise at the start of the next turn. If you were looking closely there, you would have seen the Dongyi settlement Wei suddenly turned over to be controlled by the Chu. And I didn't really know what was going on at this point. I was like, right, attack the settlement. Wait, it's controlled by my vassal. Why is it controlled by my vassal? What actually happened, I eventually realised, is that the Chu made a separate peace with the Dongyi. I didn't realise they could do that as my vassal. So the Chu and the Dongyi now are at peace, and it looks like they got that settlement in the peace deal. That's not a huge deal, since we were trying to get these settlements to be our vassal, and that's one of them got. But it does mean the Chu armies won't be supporting us in the war anymore. If I can control the camera, I can now formulate the next part of my strategy, which, unfortunately, will have to involve going all the way across these mountains and rivers to try and find these more distant Dongyi locations, since that's the only way we have to put more pressure on them and try and get them to be our vassal in totality. So off we go, going to incur a bit of a delay there, but eventually our men will find something to do. While we wait, our eastern group is going to waste a bit of time, I suppose, by very slowly trying to take these settlements. We've only got a couple of archer units, but it is enough to open up breaches, and with our infantry superiority, we can grind down the defenders. Plus, in this particular case, the Shang army is here to help us out. They're going to lose some men for us, that's nice of them. We did get one easy capture, and that's that place they just set up in the top right, since it wasn't defended. We can't occupy it, we're not allowed more settlements, so we're going to have to just kill all of the settlers and wipe this place off the map. Looks like it actually does leave the buildings behind, so we just killed the people. Maybe someone else can live here eventually. We're hiding out underneath the enemy tents. This guy knows what he did. So that was a handy use of a single unit of peasants hanging about in the enemy's backlines. I think that's a good strategy for this game, just have random peasant units everywhere to get up to no good. Even after slaughtering their civilians, the Dongyi will not surrender. We've given them a taste of what we're planning, but they're not too scared. However, I did do some diplomacy with the Ba. This is a smaller faction that I think is somewhere off to the far southwest, on the west side of the Zhou, and they agreed to recognize me as the emperor. That's very kind. And the Minyua also agreed to that same deal after we threw some cash at them. So there we have it, a couple of factions think we're the overlord, even if they're not our direct vassal. The Zhou didn't want to recognize us because they're too powerful. Even with that done, it doesn't really get us anywhere close to the Son of Heaven victory. You need 3/4 of the population to recognize you as emperor. Vassalizing the Dongyi will advance both that and the conquest victory, but I don't know by how much. We're also not that far from the cultural victory, but as I mentioned before, because we don't have more than 50% of the guy in second, which I think is Zhou, we're actually not allowed to get that one right now. A reserve army appears in the eastern sector, bringing up some trebuchets, so this will finally accelerate the attack process here. It looks like a couple of shots came out of the city, landed on the trebuchets. The trebuchets then shot them back into the enemy towers there. A nice trick shot from the new guys making their arrival. So yes, with this army that has trebuchets, we'll be able to open up these walls and gradually grind down the spears to take all of these places, pretty much inevitably. Bang! There they all go. We ended up taking all 3 of these places at the same time, funnily enough. With the northern 2, our archers were enough to get the breaches and get our troops inside. So there we have it, we've suddenly swept this territory away from the Dongyi. Does mean we're going to have to make some difficult decisions very soon though. The Han come with a request to go to war with the White D. Apparently, some other northern tribe is attacking our vassals, so I thought, okay, we'll join that war. I didn't really know who they were, but we have actually seen them a couple of times already. I didn't have diplomatic contact with them, so I couldn't immediately vassalize them, which was my first thought. But yes, they're over here, just next to the Dongyi, these various white cities, and their capital is actually pretty close, so we could put some pressure on them with relative ease. Also, there's a bit of a distinction going on here because there's the White D and the White D Rebels, which look almost exactly the same but are different factions up there, so they're not all part of the same faction. But anyway, I'm going to ignore them for now because we want to focus on the Dongyi. So then, what shall we do with our 3 cities? We can't really keep them all, but I thought it was a bit mean to completely exterminate all 3 of them, so I went for a compromise with a bit of a scheme. I occupied 2 of them for now, and the 3rd one, the northernmost one, is going to get completely exterminated. That's quite a lot of people being killed there. Good work to our troops. The hope with that one is that, since we're right next to the enemy capital, perhaps they'll start to consider us a bit more of a threat, seeing the next city over get completely wiped out. As for the other 2, I do have a plan for what to do with them. I didn't intend to actually keep occupying them since our authority is too low at the moment. We'll come back to that in a minute. First, we've got a bit of fighting, the first bit of fighting in the new part of the war, when we've crossed over the next river, crossed over the next set of mountains, and have found the Dongyi once again to the northwest, and the battles can resume. Of course, we still have massive tactical superiority in every way, and even though the enemy apparently have numbers on their side here, it's just the guys in the city not actually taking part in the fight, so that's going to be one more Dongyi field army quickly wiped out. Once our men eventually work out how to get into combat there, they do it in the end. There's also a city that doesn't have any walls just to the northeast of that location, and I've quickly sent an army to investigate. There was a small army just outside the town, so we've got a delay, but already some troops are going to go and make an attack on the town. Since they have no walls, you can attack any of the breaches right away, vastly accelerating the siege process. I thought here we might even be able to just take the town because our men are setting up in front of an empty breach apparently, but the guys inside can teleport to breaches that are about to be attacked. So some guys appear and they just about remember to put their spears down before the fighting starts. We'll be able to win the fight, but because of the time limit, we're not going to get into the town this turn. Next up, I go to the diplomacy screen and try to enact the plan that I mentioned. What I wanted to do with those places we've captured in the east is just give them to our vassals. That way our vassal population increases and our score increases, more than it would if we just killed enemy civilians. However, it seems you can only give certain regions to certain vassals. Not sure what the rules on that one actually are, but it means we can't get rid of those 2 places I've occupied. I'm going to have to just sit in them for now. In the next turn, we continue our attack on good old Yanzhou, in fact, the capital of my last Abridged campaign, where the lack of walls does mean that siege is vastly accelerated and we take the capture right there. In this case, we can't possibly occupy it, so they're all going to have to die. Very good. Our genocide continues then. There's another unwalled settlement off to the north from the White D, but we're not going to go after them. I am going to focus on the Dongyi, as I said, so we'll go west and try and cross the river with those guys. Across that river right now, other armies are already fighting. We've got 2 armies fighting one of theirs in another slaughterous field battle. In particular, one of our armies is barely engaged at all. It's just standing here shooting fire arrows at the enemy, and that's doing the work. A few arrows takes out a load of guys in each unit, and the units just rout at that damage. That's good to see. The other army's more embroiled in battle and it's just a general mess, but again a few archers here and there on the field are making sure we're always damaging the enemy, even though the melee troops are usually just standing around sizing each other up, and in this case we're going to wipe out that unit quite quickly, although our archers did have to go into melee to finish them off there. So yes, we are capturing this area with relative ease as before. There was a bit of a last hurrah when some reinforcement armies appeared and there were some more battles around this place, Jimo, including this one where some of our guys crossing a river encountered the enemies on a mountainside. The enemy had quite the terrain advantage, but I think terrain advantages aren't that strong in this game, whereas our troops are that strong, so while the enemy charge down the mountain at us, we can just hold them off, and these almost dead cav units just charge into the ranks of the enemy and rout them as before. That's all looking good. So we are going to clear those troops away, and we do, shortly after, capture the settlement. This is going to have to be another exterminators. Goodbye to a whole load of the Dongyi's people. After that particular slaughter, I was starting to wonder, is all of this killing of the enemy actually helping in any way? So I came to look at the scores once again, and I don't know, maybe our scores increase, but not really. The thing to remember is, even though we're depopulating the enemy to increase our proportion of the global population, the other factions are still growing, so overall, we're not actually advancing, we're just falling behind less. There was one little battle here where the enemy faction leader came in to engage one of my armies that crossed the river. Not a good idea, loses a couple of guys to arrows and gives up. So anyway, I was starting to realise fighting the Dongyi isn't actually going to gain us any advantage, so I started going for deals, and we eventually got a deal something like this. They were willing to recognise me as the Emperor if I gave them a load of money, which I didn't care about, and if I gave them some of their old territory back. And with that I was like, well yes, please take it back, because I'm not allowed to have this territory according to the authority rules. So I am going to accept this deal from them. We're not able to get full vassalization, but having them call me the Emperor still gets us closer to winning. The question is, how much closer? And again, it's just like, well, a bit. So now we start to ask, well, where are all these people who don't think I'm the Emperor? How do we actually get to them? We'll see the answer to that actually in a second. I also, by the way, took the Dongyi capital in that same turn. Just a bit of grinding there, nothing too exciting. And I'm going to hang on to it just to be more overlordy over the Dongyi. We'll keep all of their old stuff. Now then, we're still at war with the White D over here, so I can move my forces to start engaging them just to give them something to do. I soon had diplomatic contact with the White D rebels, and I'm going to quickly vassalize this one faction who proved to be quite cheap to vassalize. The reason is, I realised soon after, there are more than one faction that are called the White D Rebels, and you can only talk to one of them. I'm guessing this is like breaking the game in some way. So there's the White D, who have a kind of orangey red logo. There's the White D Rebels with a red logo, a more red logo, and then there's a version with the green logo, which is also called White D Rebels, and that's the one that actually has territory. So I vassalized the one that I think's just an army roaming about the place. It wasn't very useful. Anyway, you can see that this deal revealed to me the extent of the White D. They're another gigantic northern tribe. They're even bigger than the Dongyi. And that's the answer to, where are all these people not calling me Emperor? All those northern tribes don't consider me to be the Emperor of China. So it's the same situation with the Dongyi. We're going to have to do something to pressure them into either being my vassal, or perhaps more realistically, declaring me the Emperor to get our score up. Our vassals, the Chu, with their massive armies, were taking part in fights against the White D, so that's going to help us out quite a lot. Plus, they're the same faction type as the Dongyi, so they've just got loads of trash armies that we can rampage through. Here, a few of my troops coming over from the Eastern Attack Group to join this battle line do take part in this fight to help out our vassal, but we probably would have won even if we weren't there. Our guys just jump in, kill a few enemies, and those enemies soon rout away. There was almost a crisis at about this point, because the Chu decided to declare war on the Han, so our vassals are trying to fight each other. They also declared war on the Shang at the same time, and I thought I was going to have to pick a side in this and actually fight one of my vassals to get everything under control. But as it turns out, if you just say no to all of the things your vassals ask you when this happens, you can kind of get out of it. It says something about cancelling a defensive alliance, but they're still my vassal after I refuse to help them fight each other. So in the end, all that's happening is our vassals might exchange territory, but it's all still vassalized to me, whoever controls it. So who cares if our vassals are fighting? It doesn't actually make any difference to us. So we'll just leave them to it. Does mean they're probably going to be distracted from the White D war and not help us out as much, so that is something of a downside. I wondered if I could use diplomacy to pay them off and tell them to not be at war with each other, but the diplomacy doesn't have options like that. Now with the White D, as you can see, I'm making a peace deal with them. I'm going to buy a settlement off them and end the war right now without ever really fighting them much, because even though it's plausible that we could pressure them into making us the emperor or their emperor, I can't be bothered. There's too much lag, and our armies are now exhausted and depleted. We have to send them somewhere to replenish. It needs to be near buildings that can recruit your units in order to replenish them, so realistically they need to go back to our territory. And just generally the situation wasn't very good. I was ready to give up, But the war is going to continue because the White D then declared war on the Han, and I decided to be nice to my vassal and rejoin the war. I immediately took a look and realised, wait a minute, the White D actually have loads of guys. Around the place I bought off them, there were like 5 or 6 armies, and they're currently at war with the Shang already, so that's why they're there, moving over to attack that place to the west. So my armies that were marching home turn around and will have to form up in the battle line once again. The eastern group will defend the new place we just bought, and the western group will come to form up in the Shang territory and form a line off to the west to protect them. Before our men could arrive, the White D forces did overwhelm the Shang settlement, so we have now taken a loss in this war, or our vassal has at least, which reduces our population proportion, so it counts as a loss for us and for our purposes. Still though, we've got lots of armies, and the Shang counterattacked in the next turn, and it drew most of our forces into the battle. So we end up with a hashtag massive battle as all of these armies plough forward to attack multiple White D armies, and it's just absolute chaos all across the field. The settlement's on fire, the enemy armies are split up and are being individually slaughtered by our troops who are just generally superior. Pretty sure the Shang troops are decent as well, so they're probably taking them down. By the end of everything, the White D forces are going to be routed off the field and our armies remain intact. And because the settlement is still all wrecked from the White D capturing it, all the breaches are open and we can actually immediately take it at the end of the fight. We even get an achievement. I think that's an achievement for having loads of units involved in a fight or something. I thought the Shang captured this settlement in this battle, but as we'll see in a second, it turns out I actually captured it for some reason, so I'll get control of the settlement, not that I really wanted. After that, for whatever reason, the Dongyi did finally agree to be my vassal after I threw a whole load more money at them. That's particularly good right now actually, because that means they're automatically set against the White D, and they do border each other over here. So now these two states will fight and generally provide a distraction, making our little part of the battlefront a little bit easier. Potentially anyway, the White D is still so big that I guess it doesn't make a difference overall. I was so delighted with their decision to become my vassal that I decided to accept this deal from them. They wanted to rent Zhuzhou off me. They'll give me some money every turn if I let them have the settlement, and since we are looking to offload settlements, I thought fine, you can have it. They've given them a bit of their old territory back. Very isolated, but perhaps they'll make some use of it. Now, the White D rebels who were my vassals died, and that's great news because it allows me to vassalize the other White D rebels, the ones who actually have territory. So we've traded up for a superior vassal with troops behind enemy lines and territory behind enemy lines, which may come in useful if they decide to actually go after the White D. You can see though we've got a huge standoff situation. There's just tons of armies on both sides across this front line staring at each other, and at this late stage in the game I couldn't be bothered to attack them. I just put all my guys onto defensive mode and sat around my settlement. I thought if they want to fight us, they can come and get us. I'm not going to bother trying to actually push them into submitting to us, since there's not enough time left to do it basically. There was, though, one last scheme that I wanted to try. It didn't work at all, which is why I'm not really going to cover this. I'm just going to cover how it ended. Basically, the White D had loads of undefended, unwalled settlements right at the top of their empire, so I thought I'll send some units on boats to go up the coast and cheekily put an army way behind their lines to start causing chaos. The problem is, the White D also had an army on the coast of the river that I needed to use to get my troops out to sea. And when your boats approach the enemy land army, it does trigger a battle and everyone jumps into the river to fight. The troops that you can see on my side are the guys who were waiting to get into the boats. The boats were just arriving to pick them up. They happen to be particularly good troops, so we're going to be able to win that fight near up to their neck in water, although a lot of them are just standing around doing nothing. I don't know what order mode I have them on, but they're not helping very much, as you can see. The main question I had was regarding the boats. I mean, the boats are here in the battle. Can these ground units, like from the water, come and destroy the boats in melee or something? The boats themselves do have archers and they're shooting fire arrows down at the quote-unquote enemy, but if you look closely you'll see they're actually mostly shooting the other boats. And there is friendly fire in this game with archers, so that's a bit of a problem. You can see it looks like they were going to attack my boats in melee, but actually they just phased through them, so that's all fine. I thought we'll just skip to the end. But because of that friendly fire, where our guys are just shooting fire arrows into the sides of the other boats, one of the boats catches fire, and that one already had a unit on it actually, so we lost a whole military unit as well. It was a bit of a disaster, and with that I was like, oh, we're just never going to move past this land army, are we? There might be a way to sneak past it by going off to the east a bit more and taking a longer route to the north. But I was just like, oh, I'm demoralized now. I can't be bothered. We just left it. I just hit end turn a load of times in order to pick up my win on points, since we are pretty much at the end of the game anyway. For a second there, it flashes up with a defeat screen, so we almost lost, but then luckily the victory screen comes over it. So yes, it says no one's dominated China, there's no unified Chinese state, but our state's the best, so we win. We're the guys who'll be remembered. Let's take a quick look at the final scores. We won by a pretty big margin on points. Not sure what you had to do to get points, but apparently we've got a lot of them. I'm sure being stinking rich was part of it. We probably could have just slapped end turn from about halfway through the game and technically won on points without actually doing anything, which undermines most of this campaign, but oh well. We can see the White D doing particularly well for settlements and population. Their empire was indeed gigantic. If only I'd known about them earlier. The Dong Yi, who I thought were the big players for population, never really had that many people apparently. We were the strongest military, so that's good to see. We could have been much stronger if we bothered to spend all our money. And when it comes to battle stats, it looks like the White D did pretty well, killing lots of civilians. So did we. We're a close number 2 for civilian kills, but whatever the White D were doing up there, they were getting a lot of civilian kills. Very disappointing to have been overtaken in that regard, but we still won anyway. So yes, that's the end of this Oriental Empire's grand campaign as Wu. Not a very long one, since a lot of the time nothing happens, and this is an abridged series that cuts out the nothing happens parts. I was considering doing the Genghis Khan DLC, which I also have, which I presume plays somewhat differently, where you play as the Mongol invasion trying to take down China. But before we do that series, I'm going to do a series in a game that actually just came out, which is a pretty rare twist for the OfficiallyDevin channel. I'm going to play Wargroove, the tactics game that's pretty much just advanced wars. So hopefully that will satisfy the people who were requesting advanced wars of various kinds recently. I've only played the very beginning, so I don't know how good it will actually be, but we'll find out soon enough. There'll probably be a brief delay before the series comes out, since I'm going away at about this point when this video comes out, but watch out for that new abridged series coming very soon. And yes, I may come back to Oriental Empires to give that DLC a go and see how it's different. And of course, there's all sorts of other things just waiting to be abridged out there, so do feel free to launch things at me in the comments as usual. So that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching this series. Do go and check out some other ones if you want to see some more abridged gameplay action. See you next time.